How do I deal with what I'm feeling? Maybe I just don't. What you're doing, I'm in ruins, all alone. I'm all alone. I'm all alone.
A special thanks to Sirui for supplying the product you see in this video. The Sirui Saturn 35mm 1.6x anamorphic lens is a new full-frame option from Sirui for E, DL and RF mount cameras. You may know that Sirui already make a 35mm 1.6 anamorphic lens in their older Venus series, but there are a few differences. Firstly, the size and weight, being dramatically smaller and lighter thanks to its carbon fiber body. They have designed this lens first as a drone/gimbal lens. They also fixed the inconsistent squeeze issue of the Venus series. With them, you would lose stretch when you are at the closest focus, which could cause issues with people looking wider than they are meant to, but that's not an issue with this lens, which is awesome to see. Overall, we're very happy with the image quality we got out of this. It's very good for the price, and the flaring is much more subtle than previous options, which is a big plus for me. You still have the option for the classic blue, but now we also have this neutral flaring, which personally I much prefer. It picks up the color of the light sources that is causing the flaring, which in my experience is much more usable than the blue flare in professional settings. I can't tell you how many clients seeing the flaring from other blue anamorphics question it and find it distracting, especially when filming during the day. Yes, we as cinematographers love the look, but it's such a personal thing, and unless you're in that world, most people don't really get the appeal. On top of this, the Venus lens flares would often go green with tungsten light sources, like flaring from sunsets. Personally, I found it distracting and not at all feeling natural. But the blue option is still there for those who prefer it. Something that is also worth pointing out is that these lenses suffer from pretty awful pincushion distortion. I'm generally okay with a bit of distortion from anamorphics, but it's rather bad here, and you can only correct it so much in post. And even with that correction, you have to crop it and lose more of your image. I do hope they can correct this on future versions. The minimum focus isn't great, especially for a wide-angle lens at 90cm, which isn't unusual for anamorphics, but it's worth noting. I generally recommend you buy a set of screw-on diopters to allow you to get closer focus when needed. Something that is worth asking is 1.6 stretch anamorphic enough? Especially considering it's only T2.9, which isn't an overly fast t-stop. And also being a wide angle, there isn't a lot of subject separation. Combined with it only having a 1.6 stretch and generally the standard desired stretch is 2, you aren't getting a super strong look in comparison to a vintage wide angle. Well, I, like many others, love anamorphic lenses. But what people love about those lenses is subjective. For me, it's the waterfall-like quality you see in the bokeh in classic anamorphic lenses. Honestly, I don't really care about flaring. It can often be more of a turn-off. So for me, as much as I think it's a big improvement over the Venus series, I would have liked a little more character from this lens, and that would have come from more stretch or being faster. But the only modern Sony camera that can do 2 times without major cropping is the Sony Venice. But that's a Sony issue and not a Sirui issue. Given they are only for mirrorless bodies, 1.6 seems like a good halfway point. Don't get me wrong, it definitely feels anamorphic, but it doesn't scream it, so it's really up to your own taste. Some people will prefer the more subtle look, and for them, this could be perfect. I, for one, am going to keep this lens as I quite like it, and would certainly recommend it over the Venus series for its size and neutral flare options. I really hope Sirui continues in this series and gives us more focal lengths. This is a great option for anyone who wants to jump into the anamorphic world and use them on gimbals and drones. There are other options out there, but they are much bigger and heavier, or they aren't full frame, and most are more expensive. It really is a unique option and I highly recommend it. I will put a link down in the description to where you can buy it online. Follow us on the handles below, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
How do I deal